Do you want to get into real estate but don't know how? Today our guest is Gino Barbaro. Gino and his partner Jake have an awesome yearly meetup. Gino was a restaurateur and then it caught fire. Literally, his restaurant caught on fire. I promise you by the end of the episode, you'll learn how he recovered from that. You'll find out how he started in real estate and how working with others helped him grow in the space. Find out all that and more today, where we provide real estate investors with the tools to achieve generational wealth. Welcome to the Aim High Podcast. I'm your host, Bud Evans. Welcome to the Aim High Podcast. I have a surprise for you. I am your host, Bud Evans, and today I am joined by Gino Barbaro. How are you today, Gino?
Doing good, Bud. That smile is pretty infectious. You got me smiling there too, so I'm doing great. How about yourself?
I'm doing great, man. Listen, I get to sit here and talk to you in a captive situation, so I am happy like you would not believe right now. In all fairness, I have been following you for quite some time, following you on LinkedIn and also within the real estate genre. Would you do me a favor, for those who don't know who you are, would you give me a quick introduction, please?
Sure, and I'd love to follow it up with a story on how I actually got into real estate, because I think that's the important part. I'm just a father of 6 kids, ranging from 23 years old down to 8. My wife is a stay-at-home mom. We homeschool our kids, and it was, for us, it was always personal responsibility, always about taking control of our own lives. And I had done that really well in the family aspect. I had a small restaurant in New York that I opened back in 1994 with my family. So I got out of college and there was no jobs. And it wasn't a great resignation. It just, the job market stunk. Like, it's going to hopefully start stinking in the next 12 to 18 months. I don't say that in a bad way. We just need a reset. We know that there's a lot of crazy stuff going on in the economy. And I was at the restaurant for years and years. And to me, I think one of the two pivotal moments. The first one was when my father passed away in 2007, and everything started changing. I was right before the Great Recession, and I'm asking myself, is it his legacy or is it my legacy? Is it his dream or is it my dream? And it's something that I'd done when I was young. I was 8 years old. I would go to work with him at his restaurant. And the second one was in 2011. It was August 10th. And I'll never forget that day. I'm sitting in the kitchen and I'm cleaning the chickens. And I hear this poof, and I know exactly what that is. I run to the grill, and the grill's on fire, and the fire extends up into the hood. We shut the fire off on the grill, but the suppression system didn't go off, and it traveled all the way up into the hood. So my instincts is I ran outside, put a ladder up against the building. I went up, took a look at the fire coming out of the hood. The flames were shooting out. I ran down, grabbed the hose, started shooting the hose onto the flames. Now, my next door neighbor was a firefighter from the Bronx. And he's like, you know what? Keep doing it. Even though it's a grease fire, the flames are coming out. And as I'm doing that, I'm getting full of soot. I have so many things going on in my mind. I'm saying to myself, on the one hand, I can't believe this is how my dad's legacy and our legacy is going to go up in flames, number one. Number two, at the time, I just had my 5th child. How the hell am I going to pay my bills right now? What's going to happen here? And number 3 is just that loneliness. But at the same time, it was actually pretty enjoyable. I don't know. I just had that rush of adrenaline. I felt like a little kid with the hose trying to put out the fires. It was pretty surreal to me. And as I'm thinking all this stuff, the fire department pulls up and comes up the ladder and goes, Gino, you got to get off the roof. This roof may cave in. And I turned to him and I'm like, I'm not getting off this fucking roof until you get the fire department behind the building and start shooting flames. So I did not get off. I'm not letting this thing go down. They come in, they drive the truck into the parking lot. They dump the water in the parking lot. I'm like, dudes, I told you to get around the building. I'm like, I'm not getting off. And they're got to run down the street, another 2 minutes, hook up into the fire hydrant, come back. They finally get the fire off. I'm in the parking lot. And for those of you that are Catholic, August 10th was the feast day of St. Lawrence. And St. Lawrence is the saint of cooks. He's the patron saint of cooks. So the irony there, as I'm sitting there with the priest from St. John's in the parking lot, he's looking at me seriously, joking, goes, where am I going to get my broccoli rabe now? And Father Williams, I almost wanted to punch him in the face. I don't know how many out there ever wanted to punch a priest. I came this close to punch him in the face because I'm thinking to myself, my whole life here, my whole legacy is gone. What's next? As I walk into the restaurant, I see the firefighters. They're volunteers, so they're having fun. To them, it's day out, it's training. They're poking holes to see there's no more smoke. And each poke is like a jab to the heart. And I'm saying to myself, what am I going to do? How am I going to rectify this? It's in shambles. There's water everywhere. We eventually were closed for 3 months. And at that time, I'm thinking, how do I make payroll? How do I pay the bills? And I have 3 months off to reflect. And as I look back, the reason why I'm sharing the story, there were so many problems. As most of us right now be having problems. The economy is shifting. We may be losing our jobs. We may be running out of money. And what I needed to do at that point, I think God sent me the message. He's like, you got to wake up. It's time to start looking for something else. This is not what you were meant for. You're meant for something greater. And after 3 months, Jake goes down to Knoxville and we start looking at deals. And 18 months after that fire, Jake and I closed on our very first property in February of 2013. And 3 months later, we closed on our second property. And I don't know if that fire was the impetus. I tend to think it was because it shaped my world. Obviously, other things happened. I got audited by the state a couple months after that. Ironically, I'm sitting there. I've got no business. You guys are going to hit me for taxes on top of that. It was just an amazing event. And ultimately, things did work out. The insurance paid out. It was over $300,000 of claims for a stupid little fire that started in the kitchen. I was able to upgrade the whole restaurant, which was great. It was amazing. I was able to retain all of my employees. I reopened up and I figured to myself, I need to do something different. So that was the kick in the butt that I needed. And for anybody listening to this, don't wait till a fire happens in your life. Don't wait to do what I did. Thankfully, I was able to reflect upon it. I had a great spouse who told me, listen, we need to do something different, and whatever you need to do, just do it. And I found real estate as that side hustle. I had a couple of other properties at the time that were doing pretty well, but I just didn't have that leap of faith. So I said, you know what, let me turn this problem that I have into a massive opportunity. And for those of you out there, you may be struggling right now, look outside of yourself, go out and find other people that you want to emulate. I actually ended up joining mentorships after that. I ended up going to these meetups and going to these events and seeing what can I do? How can I get better in real estate? And I looked for that partner. I found Jake as a partner. When he moved to Knoxville, I was ready for that move. So I just wanted to share that with you because to me, that was a seminal moment in my life. And I don't reflect upon it as much as I should. And I'm just thankful that I was able to overcome it.
You know what? It's great that you're on today. I was working with Tarek El Moussa, and yesterday was my last day. So I'm finishing up with them this Friday, burning the boats and working on my personal consulting program. Maybe there's a reason that you're on this show today, Gino. I appreciate it. It's a great story, right?
Yeah.
There are things in your life that change so drastically that sometimes you need to look within yourself and find a different direction.
I was comfortable. I don't know about if you ever been comfortable in life. I was comfortable. The Great Recession rocked my world, and then the fire rocked my world, and then getting audited rocked my world. It took rocking my world a few times to realize that everything that I've achieved in life, it's all incumbent upon me. I need to be responsible for my results. And I was always looking out and saying, why is this person doing really well? I was blaming Obama at the time. I was blaming the recession. I was blaming the economy. I was blaming we can go out and blame. I'm not saying you're right or wrong. Life isn't fair. It's just the reality. My 23-year-old didn't grow up with the wealth that I have now. She's a Catholic missionary. Her life is a lot different than my 8-year-old who's going to be an entrepreneur who loves to go shopping for bags and for shoes. It's not fair, but that's just the cards we're dealt. And the cards that you're dealt with, I think you take a look at those cards and say to yourself, how can I best play this hand? And that's all I knew. And when that happened, I didn't have the skills to have 1,000 units. I had the skills to buy 25 units. And then when I bought the 25, I learned more. Then I had the skills to buy 36 units. And then another 6 months, I had the skills to buy 136 units. And then I found another partner. It doesn't happen all at once. There's no such thing as an overnight success. It takes years and years of building on and on. So if you think of from 2008, from when that recession happened to 2011, the fire, there were 3 years there that I was doing a little bit of mentorship, not as much as I should have. But then that fire really started everything for me. And then it took another 18 months to find that first deal.
You know what? Let's transition then and talk about that first deal. What really got you started?
For me, but I was working full time. Couldn't go out and do single family homes. I didn't want to fix and flip. I didn't want to pay more taxes. I liked it because I already owned a fourplex. I had bought a strip center. I had gotten to a mobile home park. I didn't like those. I liked the space where I could rent out apartments. I liked working with residents. I liked giving people a nice, safe, comfortable place to live, calling it home. If you look at multifamily, it's a basic human need. It's food, clothing, and apartments. I realized that early on, and I said, let me see if I can get into this multifamily thing. We can buy one deal, 10 units, 15 units, 20 units. Think big, start small. And that's what I did. I said, let's start small, Jake. When he went down there in August of 2011, everyone says that was the best time to get in. It's very similar to now. the economy was terrible. GDP was less than 1%. Rents for one bedrooms when we bought our first deal were like $350 for one bedrooms. They're $1,100 now. There was no money to be raised. There were deals everywhere on LoopNet. The banks were not lending. And it's going to come back now. So we had creative financing on our first deal. We got seller financing on our very first deal. And we looked at that deal and we could buy 25 units because I partnered with my brother. It was a $600,000 asset. It was 25 units all in one location. It was an older asset. There were weekly renters. It was a rough deal, but we still own the property. But at the time, it was hard to make that thing work. There was a lot of deferred maintenance on it. We had no real experience with 25 units, and we didn't have a ton of money. But luckily, we found a really good broker who believed in us. He said, hey, offer them seller financing. So 10% of the down payment was seller financing, and we brought the remainder of the 10%, which came out to about $87,000 with closing costs. I'll never forget that number. We each split it up, 27 grand each. And we're off to the races, 25 units. And that very first deal gave us the credibility, gave us the confidence, because on the second deal, 3 months later, that same broker brought us the second deal as well. And then he brought us the third deal. He had a relationship with the third deal as well. But that first deal convinced my partner up in New York that I eventually partnered with, and I'm still partnered with today. He had a strong balance sheet. He was buying single family homes in New York and Connecticut for like $2.5 million and renting them out for $10,000 a month. I'm like, Mike, that doesn't really make sense. That model doesn't make sense because you have one renter, maybe the capital appreciation. But listen, we're buying these assets for 1/4 the price you are, and the rental income is exactly what you're getting. There's, at the time, Tennessee, Knoxville, when Jake said he was going to Knoxville in 2011, I'm like, bro, where's Knoxville? I didn't know I'm in New York. Who Knoxville is. Now everyone knows where Knoxville is. But at the time, and that's the same thing with my partner, but I had to have the credibility to be able to go to Mike and say, hey, Mike, this is the model. This is what we're doing. And anyone, Mike's a smart guy. He's a hedge fund trader. Anyone knows multifamily is a business. Jake and Gino, we say we create multifamily entrepreneurs. It's income over expenses. It's NOI. Anyone who builds businesses or who invests can understand that at a base level and go, oh, wow, I'm buying an asset for 600 grand that's generating 13 grand a month. I just bought an asset up here that cost me $2 million and I'm generating 10 grand a month. Where's the better deal? It wasn't very hard to convince him, but that very first deal, that's why people say, oh, these small deals, you never know what that small deal will lead me to. And it led me to Mike.
There you go, man. That's fantastic. I've got to ask, that being your first deal, give me an example of what was your worst deal.
Before I met Jake, I had a couple of really bad deals before I met Jake because I didn't have the framework. I didn't have buy right, manage right, finance. I didn't have the experience. And on my very first deal that I did was back in 2005, a significant amount of money. For me at the time, I had $172,000. Never forget it. And it was my accountant who introduced me to his partner, and we were doing mobile home parks. And it wasn't the deal per se. It was number one, the partnership. And it was number two that I didn't do due diligence. I didn't know what a cap rate was. I didn't know what a syndication was. I just gave this man, I call him Maserati Mike because he drove a really nice Maserati. I gave him 172 grand. And for the first 6 months or 8 months, I'd be getting money back. Then the money stopped. And I'm like, dude. And then the money stopped. And I always say a person with money meets a person with experience. The person with the experience gets the money, and the person with the money gets the experience. That's exactly what happened to me, and that's what's going to happen to people in this part of the cycle right now, because we're at a frothy part right now. There's a lot of fraud, a lot of speculation. When the Fed drops rates to zero and keeps them there forever, and you see what happened to the NFTs and to Bitcoin and all this stuff, that happened to me in 2005 because that was the same part of the market. So I learned, I understood, I'm not going to make this mistake again. And then a year later, I did the same thing. I bought another asset. I bought a strip mall. Didn't understand strip malls. Didn't understand due diligence. Didn't understand what a commercial lease was. I bought that deal. I owned that deal for 10 years and basically, so I want to say maybe broke even. Don't think I did. But it was a great learning lesson to understand that I need to really go out there and find a mentor and understand how to underwrite these deals and understand what the due diligence process looks like. What is a rent roll? How do I add value in real estate? What do I want to? And then for me, it was all about the long-termism. If I'm going to buy an asset, how do I buy an asset? What type of the market cycle? I bought in 2006, the second deal, November of 2006. That was towards the end of that cycle. So I'm buying an asset that's really highly priced in a tertiary market where there's not a lot of demand. So a lot of you people out there listening going, uh-oh, I may be doing the same thing right now. If you can hold that asset through the cycle and wait till the next cycle and have that long-term fixed rate financing, you'll be okay. That's the only thing that saved me is I had pretty good debt on this asset. I was breaking even barely. But then at the end of 10 years, the mortgage was paid down by the residents. So I had a nice principal pay down. I had some pretty significant tax savings through cost segregation and all that. But it was a very difficult lesson for me to learn. We talk about the three pillars of real estate, that market cycle, the debt, and the exit strategy. I didn't have an exit strategy. Every time you go into a deal, understand what you're going to do with the deal. Are you going to hold it? You're going to refi it? You're going to sell it, understand that. And then from there, you can understand what kind of debt you're getting. And I think that was one of the biggest mistakes that I had with this second deal. I didn't know what I was doing. I overspent. I spent so much money on capital expenditures and repairs. Were they necessary? Some of them were, some of them weren't. I just didn't understand what a budget was and really getting that return on investment. When you put money into a property, is that money coming back to you? How is it coming back to you? Am I able to raise rents from that? So there were so many learning lessons in those first two deals.
Yeah, great. And so the way you got out of that was through mentorship?
I did. And what ended up happening was in 2008, I joined the Rich Dad Poor Dad mentorship. And it was great because I didn't even know how to select the market. I didn't know how to analyze a market. I really didn't have a great understanding of underwriting deals. I didn't know how to retrade, ask for concessions. I didn't really know how to do due diligence on properties. I learned a lot of that. Then I ended up going to Rochester, New York, which is about an hour plane ride from where I lived in New York. And I was buying duplexes before I met Jake. So I bought a couple of duplexes up in Rochester. I understood how to use third-party property management, which is great. I understood how to become a landlord from afar, right? Remember, think big, start small. I said, let me start with a couple of duplexes. As I found out in Rochester, I didn't like the market because it was a great cash flowing market, but the assets are old. A lot of Section 8. There's no real appreciation there because in real estate, we always like to say you make money when you exit real estate, when you buy it, because you can buy it really well. It's an important component and you can cash flow. But when you get that equity pull out, whether you're refining a deal or selling a deal, that's where you really make a lot of money in real estate. And in Rochester, you buy a house for $60,000 at the time. 5 years later, I sold it for $60,000. So it's just like I couldn't scale that part up. And then I met Jake. I'm like, great, Jake, let's go to Knoxville. I can see that these numbers make sense. We're buying at one-fifth of what replacement is. Cash flow is really good here. You're buying at a cash flow day one. So that's how I switched my model. And for me, it was a great learning experience. So for those of you out there, don't think it's too small or just jump in. But that mentorship really helped me out because then after that, I went to another mentorship program. And then I went to a third one, which really helped us out in our third deal. It was a gentleman. His name is Craig Haskell. He passed away. He used to have a company called the Value Hound. And great mentorship because on our third deal, going through due diligence, it was 136 units. It was a really big property. I'd never done anything like that before. So when you have somebody that's on speed dial and saying, hey, how do I convince the banks to lend to me? How do I do a lease audit? How do I actually turn these units on time? All of that, having that, on real time really helped us out close the deal. And Jake thought I was this genius. I didn't tell him until we closed the deal that I had a mentor helping us out. He's like, dude, where you getting these documents? I'm like, bro, don't worry, but I got your back. So he thought it was just like, we had a credibility book. I never forget it, like a 20-page credibility book about the assets we had, about the market, he brought into the community banker. The community banker's like, I've never seen anything like this before. You guys are real prepared. I'm like, Jake. And then he found out, I'm like, you think I'm that smart to figure that stuff out myself? Success leaves clues. There are people out there, they're doing what you want to do. Find those people and leverage their talents and don't do it for free because they spent years on their education working on, working their butts off learning the stuff. So Craig spent years learning all that. And I've always realized that if I'm going to really take advantage of something, I need to have skin in the game myself as well. That was the big mistake in that very first deal. That partner that we had, Maserati Mike, he had no skin in the game. It was just basically, hey, I'm raising money. And that was the biggest mistake, I think, out of everything. If he had more skin in the game, he'd have done better due diligence. He would have taken care of the assets a lot better. And then he's losing something. He has nothing to lose. The deal gets lost. No harm, no foul. And it's the same thing with your education. If you go on YouTube, ripping a few videos, going on Bigger Pockets, that's all great. But until you get serious and you throw out a little bit of money and you say to yourself, I'm going to hold myself accountable. I'm investing in my education. I'm going to take this seriously. Things won't change. Trust me. I know that because I went through that.
Perfect. I think that covers what did you learn as your wealth increased, but what are you currently working on?
So what did I learn? And now I'm currently working. What I learned about creating wealth is it's really boring. And you need to become an expert in one area. Listen, I started singing opera about 2 years ago. And the only way I got better at singing opera is going to lessons every week. We go to Scola, which is a choir practice Wednesdays, and then I sing on church on Sundays. And during the week, I practice. That's what wealth building is all about. It's about continuing to build and learn the skills and stay focused. I didn't jump to crypto. I didn't jump to single family homes. We didn't jump to self-storage. We want to become the Chick-fil-A's of apartments. And how do you do that? By staying focused on apartments. The last couple of years have been a little bit challenging as far as deals go. We just closed on a deal in January, it's 128 units, but the last couple of years, smaller assets. We didn't run and hide and go, oh, we need to jump into something else, or we're going to overpay for these assets and our buy rate criteria is this. And we stayed the course, we stayed focused, and we took care of our portfolio, the assets that we did have. And I think that's what building wealth is all about. It's really about boring. It's about really thinking long-term and really continuing to learn skills, continuing to learn to become a better investor. That's one of the reasons why I created Jake and Gino. I've learned more from the Jake and Gino education from my students and from partnering up and from actually just podcasting other people than the actual education, monetizing the education. What we're currently working on, Bud, right now, there's a lot of opportunity out there. There's a lot of seller financing. There's a lot of sellers out there who need to sell. If they're motivated and they need to sell, you're going to find the deals out there. People who have debt that's coming due, people who are having capital calls. There's a lot of syndicators out there that really did some crazy underwriting and they're going to have problems. So there's opportunities out there right now for the market. Are they going to be harder to actually go out and get loans on? Maybe. You may be able to do a loan assumption. Every deal we've had in the last 4 or 5 offers we've had have all had a seller financing component to it. And the sellers have actually brought that up to us because a lot of them have these deals that have tons of equity. They've got tons of capital gains. They want to defer it. And obviously, what are they going to do with their $1 million or $2 million? They're going to put it in the bank? No, they'd rather have it in the deal making 5 or 6%, and they're deferring their gains. So that's what I think the opportunity is right now. And as far as the Jake and Gene education, we're looking to sell some tickets October 14th and 15th at our live event in Orlando. Those are the two things that I think we're focusing on.
Yeah, I hear a lot about that. I know you and I were talking about offline how many have tried to make, and then always something comes up right around that time of year. But I will tell you right now, Gino, I am coming this year. I will be at the Jake and Gino event.
Looking forward to shake your hand, my friend.
Yeah, buddy. Same here, man. And then you're growing, right? So what's on the horizon?
For us, we read the book Small Giants by Bo Burlingham. I would recommend everyone read that book. We really got clear on what we wanted. We didn't want to become the next 5,000, 10,000 unit person. Our goal is to grow 20% year over year with our revenue. Is that with acquisitions? Is that with increasing revenue, income? That's what our focus is because we're vertically integrated. We have a property management company. We have about 70 employees. So for us to add 2,000 units a year, that is a lot of employees. That would really put a lot of stress on the infrastructure that we have. One of the things that we love about Chick-fil-A, we had Steve Robinson, the former CMO, I think he retired in 2015. He was on our podcast and he kept saying about Chick-fil-A, their culture is really important. So we're constantly working on our culture and our core values of the organization, but they never outgrew their infrastructure. They started in Atlanta. Then from Atlanta, they went to the Southeast. Then they became regional. Then eventually they went national. And that's what I think is important, not outgrowing the infrastructure and being able to grow intelligently, not putting the stress on us. So for us, if we can take down between 300 and 500 really good units a year.
I think we crapped out there for a second. I'm sorry. I want to hit that again because you made a great point. Can you do me a favor? Because you froze for a second. Would you go back to the CMO, start with his name, and then go again?
Sure.
I apologize.
It's Riverside. We use the same platform.
Okay.
We interviewed a gentleman named Steve Robinson. He's the CMO, former CMO of Chick-fil-A. And what I love about their story is they grew intelligently. They started out in Atlanta. They were based in the Southeast. And then in the Southeast, they grew. Then they became regional. And then from regional, they went to national. And it happened over a span of decades, not 1 or 2 or 5 years. They've had a nice 35-year journey. And as they continue to grow, they just continue to scale and scale 20% a year, it starts compounding after a while. And that's what we're looking to do. If we can get between 500 and 1,000 units a year intelligently, that's what we're looking to do.
That's a great number. Good day, high flyers. Are you ready to take your real estate investments sky high? Aim High REI is the perfect Facebook community for you. Get answers from experienced investors, connect with other motivated individuals, and benefit from valuable resources all in one place. If that sounds like something that interests you, join our amazing network today, and we'll help elevate your investing journey beyond what you think is possible. Aim High REI is on Facebook. Just click the link down in the show notes. The best part, it's completely free to join. I help new real estate investors overcome the fear of failure and achieve generational wealth through buying rental properties. Go to budevans.com and book a call with me to find out why we guarantee your first rental property. Thanks. Now back to the show. If you're ready, I'd love to go into the soaring four. These are the same four questions that we ask every guest who can start or who can help a new investor achieve new heights. Ready?
Shoot.
Terrific. Okay. What is something that you currently use to keep you motivated?
It's a great question. I would say my team, especially Jake and Gino, I don't want to let them down. So I always want to get better. I always want to create the opportunities for them. And I don't want to be the person who's holding the team back. So that's just a motivator for me to say, I need to get better every day. I need to put in the effort because I don't want to let my team down.
Awesome. Yeah, we depend on them the same way they depend on us, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah. What is one thing that you learned? It doesn't have to be today. It could have been when you first started. What is one thing that you learned that completely shifted your mindset?
For me, it was back in 2008 when we started. I read the book from T. Harv Eker's, that Secrets of the Millionaire Mind. I share this with a lot of people. When I really ultimately understood that it was about responsibility and about taking ownership, I can't blame anybody else. That victim mentality, it may work for a couple of days, but then after that, if you wallow in that, you don't take responsibility for your actions. Like I said, you may be right. You may be a victim, but then after that, where's the opportunity out of that problem? Once I realized that everything that I've done is all incumbent upon of what my actions I take, then I'm able to pick up the phone, call the broker, not make the excuse that, oh, why didn't he call me back? Let me find out why he didn't call me back. Yeah. Why did he reject my offer? Being responsible and taking that responsibility has changed my life dramatically.
Fantastic. All right. And what is a tool that you use to keep you on track?
My wife. I'm not a tech guy. I try to stay off social media, and my tool is I have a daily planner and I have sheets of paper. I write stuff down. So every day I've got my day mapped out, and on the weekends I'll plan the week ahead, and that just keeps me. I don't have to think about what's going on. I knew this podcast was at 12 o'clock. I went for a jog before. I'm going to run to the office after. I've got another call at 3 o'clock. I've got to go pick up my daughter at 6. My days are planned out, so I don't have to think about it. And I think if more people do, that's one of the things that drew me to Jake. Jake is really crazy about that when I met him. He would have and he does it to this day. He spends like 2 hours on Sundays mapping out his entire week. So he knows where he is. He doesn't have to think about it. And people are like, there's no spontaneity. No, it's so much easier because you don't have to think about that. I've got to go to this person's office at 1 o'clock on Wednesday. I'll be there at 1. What do I need to do at 2? And if you can get that level of diligence and discipline, man, talk about creating wealth. You're going to create a ton of success in your life.
Great. And if you had to start all over again, what is one thing, if anything at all, what is one thing that you would change?
I would have told my younger self to invest more money into real estate and into the business. And I squandered money when I was younger, like everybody else, the car, and I built a beautiful home, which I don't regret because it was a ton of memories, but I could have done with a little bit less. And I think not listening to other people, I should have gone into real estate sooner. Everyone's telling me it's too risky for you and you've got a nice little business here. Why are you doing that? I think you have to follow your own journey and you have to find somebody. And if I had found Jake when I was younger or a partner like that, I would have gone a lot farther, a lot faster. And I just think you need to follow your own journey. You need to find your own sole purpose in life and don't listen and let anyone else dictate what you should be doing for your life.
Outstanding. Gino, I really do appreciate your time. I know you're busy. And man, I'll tell you again, man, I fanboyed out when you accepted the opportunity, the invitation to come on here. So thank you again.
Oh, my pleasure, bud. This was fun. And for anybody out there starting to get into real estate and hearing all of the negativity, and I'm listening to YouTube and all that, there's a lot of fear out there. And fear creates opportunity. I think you can look at it one way. There's going to be a lot of problems. And as a real estate investor, your sole purpose is to create value, is to solve those problems. And the more problems you can solve, the more money you're going to make. Good luck, everybody out there. Get into real estate. Now is the time to get into real estate.
Warren Buffett said, when others are fearful, be greedy. And when people are greedy, be fearful, right?
Such wise words, aren't they?
Yeah, absolutely. I am greedy like you wouldn't believe right now, trying to buy as much as I can. So,
Thanks, bud. I appreciate it.
all right. Thank you, Gino. If somebody wanted to reach out to you, how would they go ahead and do that?
Just go to jakeandgino.com. We're online. We have a bunch of podcasts, a bunch of books. Go to the website if you want to read any articles or subscribe to the podcast and to the YouTube channel. And I think we started a link, jakeandgino.com/webinar. Every month we put on our free training. We have our closers clubs with our students. Go on there if you want to watch a video on multifamily. Just go to jakeandgino.com/webinar.
Great. Again, Gino, I can't thank you enough. I really do appreciate your time.
Thanks, bud.
All right. Thank you.